Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Oakes with MediaLeaders.com, helping companies build an awesome culture that lets the employees thrive online so the company can someday shine online. And we live in a post-COVID world. It's very different these days. And as you know, we're working on helping companies in a tactical and practical way to build a better company culture. I used to think this is stupid. This is a bunch of just silly stuff. Let's get down to what we build. But now in my company, my two companies that I operate and our guests today, you're going to see that a company culture hits the bottom line so much. It's going to help with hiring. It's going to help with putting the right people, not only on the bus, but the right seats. We've got a lot in store. I want to welcome Neal Taparia today. He's the former co-founder of Imagine Easy Solutions, which he then sold to a public company. And now he's got a new cool project / company called Solitaire. Neal, welcome to the video.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be talking with you and discussing this important topic of company culture and what it means, especially in a remote setup that we have today.
Yeah. It's exciting. I say exciting in that there's a lot of opportunity for the whole world to learn new stuff right now. I shouldn't say it's all good. Obviously, there's a lot of negativity, but Neal, you wrote a great blog that we're featuring on MediaLeaders.com. You've also got a blog that came out today that we will link to on Forbes. And we're talking about company culture. Quickly, tell us about Imagine Easy Solutions. You started it with your high school friend, and you built it into something amazing you sold. Tell us what that did and what that story is.
Yeah, so the 30,000 foot view, my buddy and I, back in 2001, we were students and we really disliked bibliographies. When you're a student, you have to write papers and they require citing your sources. So we were kind of geeky back then, and we just thought, well, what if we built a website where you input a website or book, an encyclopedia, we find ways to scrape that data from the internet and automatically put into citation. Wouldn't that just revolutionize the whole process of creating bibliographies and citing your sources? So when I was 16, my buddy and I, over the course of 2 months, put together a website and a software called EasyBib. Bib is in bibliography, to automate that whole process. And it turned out we were saving students tons of time. They ended up citing more information in their research, plagiarizing less. Teachers loved it. And soon more and more students started to use it. And if you fast forward from when we started in 2001 to 2016, we ended up adding more services that help with grammar, plagiarism, research. We reached 30 million students. We grew the business to 20 million in revenue. And then we ultimately joined Chegg, a public company in the Bay Area, and were executives there for a few years, continuing to scale the business.
Amazing. That's pretty cool. 16 years old, starting something like that. You've now got a project called Solitaire. Tell us about that.
Sure. So we have this education technology background. And after we left Chegg, we wanted to think about how we can continue making an impact in the education space. And we had some ideas that gamification in education is a unique medium to get people to gravitate towards learning opportunities. So we have a hypothesis that we could take classic games like Solitaire and leverage the popularity of those games and layer on brain training, which is another big category. So it's still in early stages, but we're seeing a lot of promise in our research on what we know games can do for mental health and wellness. And we also know that these games are already popular. So we've launched this site, Solitaire, and we have users, and we're hoping to run some tests to see how we can help them with their cognitive training.
I love it. Okay, why happiness matters, you write in our feature that we have you on at MediaLeaders.com. Happiness at work has so many ramifications. What's one of the rules that you reminded everyone? What's one of the rules that you reminded everybody at your company if they didn't want to be there?
Sure. So we had one simple value written on the wall. There were a few values, but the most important one that we emphasized was, are you happy coming to work? And I would ask that question, and we decided to put it around everywhere to constantly nudge people to think about it, because my first work experience out of college was at an investment bank. And I was an analyst there, and you were really treated like a monkey. That's just the investment banking culture. And I remember not feeling too motivated or engaged in that work because I didn't feel like they were investing in me. And that was just the culture that they had there. That's the culture that they have at a lot of different investment banks. But when I started working on Imagine Easy full time, I had that in mind, the idea that I didn't feel engaged in my work because I wasn't excited to come to work. So I knew from the get go that I wanted people to come to my office and my business, and I wanted them to be happy there. And when you think about the big picture, you spend 8 to 10 hours of your day working. And if you're not happy coming to work, or if you're not happy doing the type of work you're doing, or if you're not happy working with the type of people you work with, then you're not happy a substantial part of your day, and it's a pretty big drag on your life. So time is short, time is sweet. And I've always thought that if you can make a workplace that's happy, it can benefit you in so many ways that you don't even anticipate.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Hiring, firing, less babysitting because people have. Yeah, we're going to talk about that actually. So you sold your company. Congrats. I'm your biggest cheerleader. Entrepreneur to entrepreneur, just seeing people succeed is awesome. And this is why we're doing this, because I want to learn from you. Then something happened when happiness comes crashing down, as you say in your contribution. What happened and what did you do to fix it?
Sure. So when we sold our company, it ended up becoming an emotional roller coaster for us. We had a bootstrapped company. It was run by me and my friend from high school. We had a close knit culture. We had about 60 employees at the time, but we really made an effort to try to get to know everyone as much as possible. And when we announced the sale of our company, suddenly it was a clash of realities. One day they were working for a small business with a mission that they really understood and liked, and suddenly they were part of a big public company. To us, it was a life-changing event, and naturally we were excited by it, but our employees didn't necessarily see it the same way. And there were a few challenges. Number one, they didn't know who this acquirer was. Chegg was this company in the Bay Area. They didn't have a New York City presence. They weren't really into our space. They were in tangential educational services. They didn't know who Chegg was. They didn't know the mission. They also didn't know the leadership team there. So while they knew us really well, who the heck was the CEO of Chegg, and
Yeah.
who was my boss going to be for that matter? So I think that was all very unnerving to everyone when we sold our company. We also didn't do a good job of communicating what was going to happen next. So when you join a big public company, especially from a small company, you have to level employee skills. You have to make sure salaries are correct to the wider system. So there was a lot of work that needed to be done there. And naturally, people think highly of themselves, as they should. But when it's benchmarked against what a public company thinks you should be skilled at, it can create a lot of turmoil. And if one person's unhappy with their leveling, that can be spread to other people, and it could create a lot of negative energy that way. We also had people who didn't know what was going to happen with their job. We had to shut down an institutional business that we were running previous to selling because that business wasn't profitable, and people were worried about their jobs. So there was a confluence of things that were happening that really created this environment of uncertainty. And about 2 weeks into the acquisition, while at least to me, I thought this was going to be an exciting path forward for everybody, I started getting letters of resignation. One was from someone I thought really highly of. They brought a lot to the table, and the person just simply did not want to be at our company. And being a small, close-knit team, that hurts. This person was a culture bearer too for us. They really brought people together. And then after that, it was another resignation. And when you start seeing people dropping like flies, it really creates a nervous, anxious environment in a company. So we had to figure out what was going on and how to address it.
Yeah. And that's the tipping point, if you will. You started seeing something happening. And what did you do?
So fortunately, we had a lot of positive direction from the leadership team at Chegg. prior to that, we had taken some company surveys, but we weren't very methodical or academic in the way we would try to understand our employee engagement. But Chegg had a lot of great experience trying to conduct company surveys and employee engagement surveys. So we ended up running some employee engagement surveys to start understanding more about our employees in an anonymous fashion, to find out how they're thinking about work, where they might have these motivational shortcomings, and what we could do about it. So we administered these surveys through a program called Culture Amp, and it started giving us quantitative data on what's going on. And it's really interesting. Culture Amp was able to, break this information up for us by team. We had a New York City-based team. We also had about 20 people in Berlin too. So our team was distributed across different time zones, and we were able to collect feedback and insight across different teams, across different functions, from marketing to developers to product. And we started noticing some trends. And some of these trends are the topics that I had talked about before. For example, we learned that suddenly they felt like product direction was coming top down. So when we joined Chegg, we hashed out a general roadmap with Chegg. And when we sold the company, we said, this is the path that we're going to go forward. Here's a general product direction. So the rest of the team thought, well, where's my involvement in this? You're just suddenly telling me what to do, but we're not really contributing to the vision like we always used to contribute. So we received feedback like that through the employee engagement survey, and it became clear that that was an area we need to address. There were other issues around compensation and leveling that I was talking about, and also the fact that people just did not understand Chegg, what the other business lines were, who the leaders were. So that survey was just super instrumental to us to really understand the exact and acute pain points that we need to go about building a plan to address.
Good for you. The surveys sound like they were a saving grace in a way, right, for company culture. And were they
Yeah,
anonymous?
they were anonymous in the sense that we didn't know who was responding.
Yeah.
We were able to break it down by function. So that was only a data point we had. And the reason was each team can act uniquely and has different needs. So we were able to get those insights to allow us to better address issues should they stem from a particular team or function.
That's clever. That's good data. And yeah, that's awesome. And so hindsight is 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Neal, tell us, some of the people listening or watching are thinking, okay, so what is the additional value of culture, like having a really good culture on a company before you sell it or after you sell it? What are some of the key takeaways that you think that people might not realize that are added values if you get your culture right, that it stems to all these things?
Sure. I think one of the biggest underlying uh, underlying connections that happen with a good culture is trust. So when you come to work and you're happy, you end up trusting your colleagues. And when you trust your colleagues, that leads to an environment of mutual accountability. So if we were colleagues and we're working on a marketing project together and our deliveries tomorrow, I would trust you to deliver on it and you would trust me. But not only that, I don't want to disappoint you and you don't want to disappoint me. And we have high expectations for each other. And that only comes when you have trustworthy relationships within a company. And that comes with a good company culture. On top of that, when you're happy, you're motivated, you're aligned with the mission, you really enjoy your work, and you're going to bring your best foot forward every day at your company. That translates into awesome productivity. It also translates into good ideas. We've always prided ourselves in having a place where our team feels free to come to us with ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're the CEO of a company, it doesn't mean you have the best ideas for the company. Being a CEO means you're able to take ideas and you're able to synthesize which are the best ideas of those to drive your company forward. So trust, being in a place where people feel that they can communicate with you, and even the ability to fail. and celebrate failure is something that happens with good culture. And to elaborate on that more, we always pushed our team to experiment and try new things. And if
Hmm.
they failed, that was something that we wanted to celebrate.
Hmm.
All of that meant that we were testing new ideas, trying to advance our company further. So all of that to me stems from culture, and it leads to an amazing team and productivity if you can get it right.
Yeah, I love what you said. Trust, productivity, and I love the good ideas too thing, because you're innovating faster than your competitors.
Yep,
And you're
exactly.
making your customers super happy there, which I love that. And no, you're right. The CEO doesn't have to come up with all the ideas. In fact, they should hire people smarter than them
Yep,
and just
exactly.
lead the team. Isn't that part of what the leader's job is to lead the team, listen to them? And I love that. It's a very humble approach, what you're saying. Okay, you just contributed to Forbes. What was the topic, the title, and then talk to us a little bit about that article.
Yeah, so I just penned a piece about 5 ways to motivate your remote team. And I was thinking about the topic simply because in today's environment, so many new people are working remote when they hadn't always been doing that. And even new managers have to manage remote teams. It's something that's new to them. And I know in a remote setup, sometimes when you're out of sight, you're out of mind, and it's very different than managing and motivating a team in person. If me and you are able to talk together, that is a motivating and engaging experience. And when you're on Slack or Zoom, it starts to feel impersonal, or you stop making the same effort that you might used to make because you don't have those physical cues or nudges that you used to have in the office.
Yeah.
So you really want to think about those success factors around motivation that you have in the office, and you want to bring them to a remote setup. One obvious one is just feedback. When you're in a remote setup, you can't necessarily think about fast feedback because you're talking through Slack or whatever the communication channel is, and you can't forget about it. So when you give feedback regularly, it signals to your team you care about them, you want to invest in their growth. And when you do that, that's one of the most instrumental things you can do to have an engaged team. When they know you're investing professionally in them, they want to contribute more to the company. And it's really easy to forget about that in a remote setup. So the article talks about trying to create processes to remind yourself to constantly give that kind of feedback.
Mm.
I also talked about communicating your mission in an office environment. It's very easy to talk to each other what your work is and why you're doing that. That can easily get lost when you go remote and you're just communicating on Slack. So what we do with our company is we send a weekly note from me or my business partner about why we're doing it, the progress we're making, the big picture we have. And it's just to keep everyone aligned and reminded of the mission. You
Nice.
just have to reiterate these messages again and again and again. And that's how it really sticks in people's minds. And again, it goes back to the idea of you need to avoid being out of sight, out of mind to keep your team motivated.
Yeah, I love that. I heard a phrase last week because I see some people in a role. They're like, that's not my role. Things are below them. And then you and I, Neal, I'm guessing there's a great phrase that might describe us. There's no job too small for the big dog, right? There's no like little snack too small. Like we'll go in and do it if we have to, if we need to. And that means communicating with an email message to everyone. Hey, I want to take time to that's not too small. And in fact, it's probably, like you're saying, super valuable.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in your own work, but when you're a leader, you have to think about your team and you have to empathize with how they're thinking and feeling, especially in a remote setup. And you just have to do all these little things, and it makes a difference. If it changes their psyche about how they think about work, it's going to make a dramatic impact on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Neal, I really want to thank you for your time today. This has been great. And it's a new world we live in, right? You're in New York City. I'm in Los Angeles. And here we are coming together doing awesome stuff. And this is kind of the new post-COVID world, which can be exciting. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Those of you listening or watching, you can go to medialeaders.com to learn more. Neal's links are below. He wrote an awesome blog post that you can use to get some tips, some techniques. As always, remember to keep it light, bright, and polite. Your employees are watching. And when you're light, bright, and polite, it helps you. This is the title of one of my books. It helps your company to teach your employees how to thrive online. Light, bright, and polite. Is it positive? Is it smart? And is it polite? Is it going to change your Google results for the next 5 years? And if it is, then it's light, bright, and polite. It's going to help your company to shine online. Employers, remember, if you have 1,000 employees, but yet you have 20,000 followers on Facebook, your 1,000 employees are more of an influence to people than your Facebook page. So keep that in mind. You have little influencers there, mold them, support them, and what they're doing online is going to have a bigger footprint for your company and more authentic, because people trust those who work for a company more than they do a brand page. Keep that in mind. I'm Josh Oakes. Thanks everybody for listening. Shout out to Neal. Thanks for your time today. We'll see all of you on the next episode. Thanks, guys.